vinyl's back again, which is my passion. You know, it was kind of depressing running a label and having it turn to like streaming and CD. You know, I just, you know, my roots are vinyl, so that's kind of it's good to be back and be doing vinyl.
What is up, everybody? How you doing? Welcome back to the Punk Rock Review Podcast. I've got a very special guest this afternoon, evening, whatever time zone you're in. We got Sean Muttaqi, formerly of Vegan Reich, now doing Violent Disorder. And I think you said you got a label, right? Like you're doing
right.
That's so dope. So what's up, man? Welcome to the show, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So, first, before we go into any kind of like history stuff, so tell me what you're doing right now. What do you got going on right now?
I mean, well, two things that have kind of coincided, which is, I mean, the first one, I mean, we'll get to the band in a second, but they kind of are tied in together. I had the label, it's the 30th year anniversary of Uprising Records. But for about 10 years, it was pretty inactive because I actually sold the back catalog to Sony for most of the releases.
Okay.
I kept a few releases that were like really dear to me, you know, that I didn't want to part with, and kind of just got out of it a while. I was running a merchandising company, just kind of got in a different section of, you know, doing it still in the music realm, but just different area, and kind of coincided with, you know, things getting a little weird in the music realm for a while, and just kind of, you know, bowed out for a little bit, and decided to kind of get it going again, and that timed out with me doing a new band with one of my oldest friends that I've been friends with since the 80s, a friend of mine in the UK. And so that's kind of how, you know, so Uprising's back again, and our first new release after, you know, 10 years is my new band. So it's cool.
That's awesome, man. I think a lot of folks don't realize what goes in to running even a small DIY label. Like I think I'm on my 10th release of the last 18 months.
Nice.
And yeah, you know, I'm very proud of what I've done, and I got 2 7-inches coming out, and I told my wife, I said, I think once I get those 7 inches out, and I have 2 more commitments. I said, I think I'm going to take like just like a 6 month. I just need like a breather. I need to like take some time away, like like save up a little bit more capital, get a little bit more time, just kind of like, you know, get some more interviews on the channel, really focus on this, because it's all one big umbrella for me. And I do the label, the channel, I have a record store, and it's all one thing, but I need to just take the labels. It's a lot of work, man. And you get like shipping orders out, just that by itself, that's a job, bro.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's so, you know, it's good. I'm in a good place to be back with it, because I mean, it had been for many years, it had become a very, very full-time thing, and but the industry just kept changing, and it was moving further and further away from things that I enjoy doing. I mean, I wasn't the last 10 years of the label, I was, you know, I just had A&R guys working for it. So it wasn't even me really. Right. I mean, I was running it, but, so, you know, and vinyl had become not a thing for so long. And my passion's always been vinyl. So I just kind of, eventually I was like, I'm kind of over it. But, you know, now, you know, and it's interesting the way everything's worked. I mean, actually right before the pandemic, I was going to relaunch the label and do a band.
Okay.
You know, and a couple things happened. You know, the band was getting ready to come out, and actually right before the pandemic, the first thing that happened, I got in a car accident and got really jacked up, couldn't do anything. So that kind of delayed that band. That was an away band as well, you know. So like we're talking like, I don't know, that was maybe 2017 that we got in that accident. So it delayed it, and then, you know, then got ready again to almost get that. This is a different band, but getting ready to put that out. Pandemic hits. I'm like, what's the, you know, we can't tour, like everything was shut down.
Right.
So
that shit was scary.
Yeah. So, you know, so it's kind of, it's been a delay, but now it's in a good place, and vinyl's back again, which is my passion. You know, it was kind of depressing running a label and having it turn to like streaming and CD. You know, I just, you know, my roots are vinyl. So that's kind of, it's good to be back and be doing vinyl and tapes, you know.
Yeah, tapes are like my personal like hobby that I like to do, which is why I started with tapes. It was a little more affordable, and I was like, I really like tapes. And then now I'm starting to do vinyl, and it's the expense is like 5x, maybe more than that even. It's a lot. It's a lot more. And the only thing is that vinyl typically sells a little bit better. So it's a calculated risk, but I'll talk to people like I bartend a couple of nights a week to kind of supplement just what I got going on, and I'll talk to some of my customers, and they're like, vinyl, you got a record store? I'm like, yeah. They're like, what do you sell there? I'm like, records. Like, I'm like, I got tapes and CDs too. And they're like, you have a whole store. It's just, and I said, it's not a big place. It's really small. I said, but it's mine. I don't owe anybody any money, and I have my inventories paid off. I think I owe Rev like a couple $100. I don't owe anybody money. Like I'm good. And just this a blessing, man. And I tell them, I'm saying, you don't understand, man. Back in like the early 90s when I first got into this stuff, that's what I bought. I bought records. They were cheap. They were easy to get a hold of, and most punk bands had their stuff on vinyl because it was affordable. That's why it all started for me. It had nothing to do with cool or anything. It was what was affordable back in the 90s, and then you would dump it onto a tape, and then that's how you took it with you somewhere. You'd take it on a cassette, like a little bootleg tape. But at home, you had your record collection, and I assume that's what you did too. I mean, you're a little bit older than me, but not much.
Yeah, I mean, so it's funny. In the 80s, early 80s, we had in SoCal, we had Rodney on the Rock, which was like the radio, I mean, so even before, we're buying vinyl too, but that was like, and actually going back then, I mean, sometimes it was cassettes, but before, my dad actually had an old reel, like this is going back, like, because the 70s, it was like reel to reel, right? So like I had a reel to reel hooked up to the stereo, recording those shows, then going back and listening to them, and then being like, oh, that's the vinyl to get, then going and trying to hunt that down, right? And a lot of stuff was coming from the UK, so then going to the small shops and trying to get them to order it from Rough Trade, that kind of thing, So, it's
dude, reel to reels are awesome, man.
That is a
beautiful piece of equipment.
Yeah, I'd actually, I would love to have one again, and unfortunately, he didn't keep his old one. As things changed, he got rid of it. But that was, they're great.
I had one pop in my shop recently. Like I say recently, like within the last 8 months, and I couldn't get it working the way I want, like to where it was dependable. I'm very picky with what I put in my office because I don't have a lot of space. So I just couldn't get it to where I thought it was working well enough to bring it home, or I would have. I really wanted to. I had a couple of blank reels too, so I could have done some fun things. It wasn't in the cards, but I love watching those things work, and just they sound a little different. They're more close to vinyl in my opinion as far as the warmth of the sound. It's nice, man.
There's I forget the name of the company, but there's a company that's just putting out real limited like jazz and blues reel to reels, and like they're getting, and they're going, I think, straight off the master, so it's like super high quality.
Whoa, like that's awesome.
Yeah,
if you're gonna listen to jazz that way, that's probably one of the top ways you can listen to it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, unless you've got just the best turntable and a pristine piece of vinyl, but
I think that, I mean, we're talking audiophile stuff right now, but I personally really love a high-end CD player and a good setup. Like it just sounds like I prefer a record,
right?
But as far as my personal opinion on like what sounds the best, I've never heard anything sound as good as like a well-made CD, because you can get bullshit with everything, and CDs are no exception. A good quality recording and a really nice stereo. It's just, man, you can't beat a good stereo, man. Like, the headphones and stuff are cool, but my setup next to me, man, I wouldn't give this away for nothing, man. I wouldn't sell it for double what it's valued at. Like, it's mine, it's personal, and you have a personal experience or a personal relationship with your music when you're playing it on vinyl. That's what I tell people. Like, no, man, you got to get up and flip it over. You have a relationship with your music at that point, and that's important to me.
I mean, that's like, so at our house, and not to bore people with all this like audiophile stuff, but like in my room, it's a Marantz amp from the 70s. I got the inline JBLs. Remember those, like where the speakers are all like in a row down the
center? Yeah.
There's like the old Rolling Stone ad with the guy's hair blowing back listening to one of those. So,
dude, man. I had a vintage Marantz receiver, and I just couldn't afford to keep it. Like, I got it for a good deal, and I knew a guy that wanted it, and I was like, all right, the guy that wanted it, just shout out to my buddy Chris. He's one of my best friends in the world, so I'm glad he's got it, because I got a really good Yamaha out of the deal anyway. So like, I'm good, but I had an opportunity. It just didn't make sense financially for me to keep it. But those old vintage Marantz receivers are something else, man. That stuff, a good receiver and a good record player will sound different than people understand. Like young people just don't get it. They don't understand because they've never been around it. They've never heard a good stereo.
Yeah, it's a different thing. And I mean, I think that's even the difference with like, you know, preference of CD or vinyl. Like for me, because I grew up with vinyl, I want that sound, right? So that's what I prefer. Now that said, I do stream music. I have other speakers in the house stream music. But if I want that, you know, that listening experience, that's going to be what it is.
That's amazing, man. I love talking about this stuff. I know it's probably boring our listeners to tears, but you know what? Maybe not, man. A bunch of people that are on this channel, they're all our age group, and they appreciate good stuff. I've talked to a few of them on like Patreon and whatnot, and in the comments on YouTube and stuff. And there's a lot of people that are you know, putting up a little money to get a good stereo. And I've had people ask me like, "Hey, what are you playing your stuff through?" And you know, I'm not an expert on it by any stretch of the word, but I sure love it. It's you probably know more about it than I do. I just am a more or less.
I mean, I know you know, it's for me, it's just the stuff that I like, and then I know about that, but I'm not like
dude. At least you can admit that. There's so many people out there that can't behave that way. They're like, "Oh, I know everything." And you're like, "Not really, man. I'm a specialty on like this stuff." And that's awesome, dude. Well, I'm really glad that you're putting out music again. I really like small labels. Since I run one, it's kind of, I've always supported small labels. That's why I wanted to start my own, because I knew it was something that I was passionate about. And so I'm glad to see you back doing that. So with the music that you're putting out, you said it's your band. Is it the Oi stuff? I heard somebody told me you were putting out some reggae stuff. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, I got a lot of stuff coming out, and I'm actually involved in a lot of new bands that I've got going.
Okay.
But the first new thing right now is the Violent Disorder record, and that's an Oi record. Yeah. So
yeah, hell yeah.
No, but that, you know, but it's interesting. I mean, one of the sort of unique things we try to do about this band, or I mean, I should say this first record is my roots going back. You know, Oi is one of the like earliest kind of roots connected, you know, within punk or like within punk to me.
Right.
I was, you know, 81. I was around for that. That was kind of like one of my first things. But before that, just because my parents were musicians, so I grew up with reggae. And so when the two-tone scene hit in the late 70s, I was just, you know, I was like, you know, 9 or whatever, right? But that was like sort of my first thing. So like reggae, then two-tone, and then through that, Oi, and then, you know, Decline came out here in California as a movie, and then I was like, oh shit, like we've got this like local punk scene. So I immediately started going to like Cuckoo's Nest, doing that, you know, all that shit. So, you know, so for me though, there's always this connection back to reggae though, because it's my first thing. And because of the connection with like, you know, the original skinhead scene, which is, you know, came out of reggae, came out of Jamaicans in London, the whole theme of this first 7-inch is kind of exploring that connection. And I mean, I know people pay lip service to it and they kind of know about it now, but we really wanted to detail it on this record that like, this is where that comes from. So that's amazing. The whole thing, you know, is so, which is interesting, right? Because you do have the skinhead reggae scene that's big again now, right? And then there's the Oi scene, and some people in the Oi scene like the skinhead reggae, and some people in the skinhead reggae scene do like Oi, but they're still very separate scenes.
Yes, yes.
And we really just tried to sort of, I mean, you know, not musically really, because this is an Oi record, but just bridge the gap lyrically, kind of.
Okay.
Say, these are connected. These are one thing. You know, so that's kind of what we've tried to do on this first record.
Dude, that's awesome. I'm excited to hear it. I've heard something that you put out recently. I can't remember. It might have been like a clip or something. My memory gets, I got so much coming at me every day. It's hard to decipher what I'm listening to.
I mean, yeah, because we've put some clips on the Instagram, and then these are streaming now too. They're on Spotify.
I might have just listened to it on streaming then. I know I've heard something, but yeah, I'm more of like a punk rock guy, right? Yeah. But the older I get, the more I get interested in Oi. I just don't want to get out there and like spout stuff that's not accurate and act like I'm somebody I'm not. I'm really mindful of that, because you know you behave fraudulently, you're going to get checked really quickly. It just doesn't make any sense. But my point is that the older I get, the more I'm interested in Oi music, and I find it interesting. I think a lot of punk rock guys that's the journey. Is you start out in like punk or hardcore, and you're
Right.
young and you're super pissed off, and then you start getting a real job in excuse me, in your mid-20s, start having to pay some bills, your car breaks down a few times, you lose your job for some shit you didn't do, or whatever the situation is that puts you in a real funky mood. And then you hear like a, you know, Coxbar record again, and you're like, man, I forgot how good this was. And then you're like, they're talking about something a little different than a street punk album might talk about. And it's I just did a video on Cold Oi, stuff that's coming out of France, and lyrically it's all pretty all, you know, it's Oi, but musically it sounds a little different. I'm really enjoying this new
love
stuff.
that stuff. And I'm glad you mentioned it, because to me, you know, I really like all the variants that are coming out again within Oi right now. To me, it's, you know, some people don't like it. I'm a real big fan.
I love it.
And I'm especially a fan because, so, you know, again, going back, having been there back then, is that the sort of second wave of Oi, especially that got so big in the States and with American Oi bands for the most part, is mostly people that like were into Foreskins or The Last Resort, let's say, right? And they modeled their sound after that. And I love those bands. But the early scene, those were just two bands, right? Like the Toy Dolls were considered an Oi band back then, you know, in the early 80s. And I mean, it's just very like, you know, like juvenile, like just fun. It's just a fun band, right?
Right.
Angelic Upstarts. There was a lot of variance in the early scene. And then we can talk about proto-Oi bands, right? Like Sham 69 or kind of proto-Oi, because Oi wasn't a term yet or whatnot. But the sound was really varied actually back then. And so what's happening now in a way is it's actually just, to me, becoming more true to what that scene, like back then the scene was just like, are you a working class punk band with working class themes, and not necessarily like the stereotypical ones that might have become later, like, oh, let's just, every song is just about drinking or working, you know, or what we're wearing. I mean, just all the themes that might be relevant to working class people back then with these bands were, you know, they were Oi bands. And again, I mean, it's just a loose term. I mean, the scene was the punk scene, right? So it wasn't different. It was just kids trying to not, you know, that scene back in the 80s was getting a little bit more, you know, people paying too much attention to fashion, too much attention to this and that. And Oi was kind of stripping it down. In a way, you could almost say like not musically, but kind of a similar thing happening in the UK, what happened with hardcore separating from punk here, right? Trying to just bring it a little bit less fashion oriented and just a little bit more raw. And, you know, I think in the UK with a little bit more emphasis on that working class thing, because they're sort of a very class divided society, right?
100%. 100%. I think it parallels punk quite well. It does exactly the same thing. Punk rock was, you know, when you look at punk in the 70s, it was also hard to define what it was. You had a bunch of different bands that sounded very, very different. And then as it went along, you had a sound that was now, that is what the punk rock sound is. People can say whatever they want. They can dislike it if they want. There are rules and stuff to all this stuff. It is what it is. You can like it or dislike it, but it doesn't make it, you know, not true if you don't like it. It is what it is. You know, people are like, well, why do you classify things so much? And it's, well, because we like to talk about it. And if you don't have any way to describe it, then how do you know what you're talking about? That's my personal reason.
You need some reference point, right?
Reference point is a good.
But I think what happens is, I mean, you know, one of the reasons sometimes, because I do listen, I'm always listening for new bands, so I'm not like stuck. I'm not stuck in the past. But one of the reasons that I'm always like, I do return to like some of my favorite stuff is stuff from like the 70s or 80s, is that the early generation of punk bands grew up listening to a different kind of music than punk.
100%.
So their influences are not punk, and then they each have a very dramatically different style and sound. And you know, same thing could be said for Oi. You know, some bands were listening to, you know, they're all listening to different bands, so they had like manifested differently, right? Their sound. And the later bands all tend to say, well, they all grew up listening to punk, and now they're playing punk, or they all grew up listening to Oi, and they're playing that. So it kind of homogenizes the sound a little bit.
That's true. That's very true. I personally kind of appreciate that. But I'm also of a later generation. Like I grew up, I'm 42. So I grew up in the 90s. And so like the stuff I like, I got into a fairly heated debate online about this guy who was like, you don't even listen to the Clash. And I'm like, I'm 42, man.
Right.
Like,
It doesn't have
like,
relevance to you. Yeah.
yeah, like when I discovered the Clash, I already figured out what I liked, and then I discovered the Clash. It was like
Right.
I just got unlucky. It was backwards. Now I've since listened to some of their early material, really kind of like it quite a bit.
Right.
I just when I first discovered them, it was like Combat Rock and London Calling, and I just didn't feel like that stuff sounded like punk to me. But
Right.
for the reasons that you described, is why they didn't grow up listening to it. So like.
Yeah.
They're the creators of this sound for to a degree, and
Right.
and the older I get, the more I appreciate some of the classic stuff. I also tend to like buck people tell me what to do, and so naturally when somebody goes, hey, you should listen to this, I'm like, man, I'm good,
Right.
They're just like, what? And I'm like, I don't know, man, I don't know why I did that. It's stupid. I know I act like an idiot sometimes, but yeah, it's this is a very important subject to a lot of people, though. Everybody that's involved in this, for the most part, this is a very important thing. So people tend to get very defensive. They get, yeah, that's it. They get defensive and they get very, very much in their feelings. And I'm okay with that. It's all right, man. I'm here for a discussion, and I am certainly no expert, and I'm not an authority on it. So I just like talking about it. And I think that's probably one of my biggest assets is that I'm not anybody important, man. I'm just a guy that loves this shit. So
I think, and it's we can't avoid the generations we're from and what kind of we like.
Bro.
But for me, I always try to like see. I'm always on the lookout for new bands. I go, I'm trying to see music constantly, both bands I grew up with if they're playing, but also new bands. I'm always on the lookout.
One of the best things about my channel is that on Sunday nights we do live streams, and that's the whole focal point of my live stream. And it's like 2 hours every week. I'm trying to hear songs I've never heard. I bring in new stuff to the table. I'm discovering, maybe it might even be an older band. It's just something I've never heard. So I'm like, yo, man, you guys have a request? Throw it in the chat. Let's do some stuff. Like what's today? Today's Monday or whatever. This past Sunday, I did women in punk for almost 2 hours. I just listened to nothing but female fronted punk bands. For the whole evening, and I'm working on a new video, and I'm all this stuff people need to understand. I'm trying to learn this stuff as much as I'm trying to preserve it. So I grew up in Houston with a religious house with no dad, so I never got to hear any music. I never got shown anything. So like it's really kind of a stroke of dumb luck that I even got into this stuff to begin with. So I understand where I'm at, but you can't, like you said, you can't change where you're from. I didn't choose to be born here and live here. I just exist. And, some people are cool with it. Some people aren't, man. Whatever.
Yeah.
So
now, I'm curious. So, because it's 90s, so it's a decade later, but did the impact of some of the like Austin scene, like Big Boys or Dicks or anything like have any influence out like in Houston or not?
In Houston, yes. For me, less. In Houston as a whole, absolutely.
Right.
Texas has its like own like ethos, its own like history, its own. We were our own place, we're so far away from everything else. I like a lot of the Texas stuff, but my personal experiences were that I just kind of found what I found when I could find it, and so and I didn't understand like bad recording quality and stuff. So like when I first started the Misfits, I didn't even like them. You know what I'm saying? So like it took me a long time to get to where I understood all this stuff, but I was willing to learn. I just didn't understand much of it. But yeah, all that Austin stuff specifically, and there's a lot of stuff from Houston that's way older than people realize.
Right.
But I wasn't allowed to go out and do anything. So like by the time I was able to go do this stuff by myself, it was literally like 1999, bro. Like I didn't get to go out and do stuff until almost 2000. So I was so far behind on history that it almost passed me by completely.
See, it's funny because I got very lucky in that like my parents were musicians and they just didn't care, like they literally didn't care what I did. So, and my dad lived about a block away from the Cuckoo's Nest, and
that's crazy.
He would just. I was too young to be able to get in, but they would just let me in. It didn't matter, like nobody gave a shit back then, right? So, man,
I do remember a little bit of that, man. I remember back in like the mid 90s, like, because I have two older brothers. They live in Dallas, and I don't talk to them now, but when I was younger, I did. And I remember if you had a family member or a really close friend that was older than you, you had a lot of I guess pull or there was a lot of leeway of what you could do and get away with, you know.
Yeah.
And back in the day, things just weren't as crazy as they are now. Like right now, if you go to a club and let's say a dude like stumbles by, trips over your foot, falls, breaks his arm, he could sue you or some nonsense, right?
Yeah.
That's just
Right.
not how it was back then. So like people were a
No.
little more, there was a little more freedom to just be who you wanted to be and do what you want to do. And that came with some danger, but it also came with just a lot of enjoyment, man. Less stress. It was just, man, free.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, you know, I do miss those days of that, you know. And
Right.
I mean,
Man, I wanna get to know a little bit about you. So I know that you did Vegan Reich, and that was like I don't know if this is an appropriate description, but like hardline vegan straight edge, right?
I mean, I guess a lot of people would say that, but I mean, but just for clarity purposes, right? So when Vegan Reich first came out in like, I guess we were recording the stuff in 86, but I think by the time it was on record, just we did this one song on this ALF benefit compilation, which was 87. So at that point, we were, you know, if you listen to that song, we sound a lot more like Conflict, and the band was not like, I mean, we were vegan, but we weren't. There was not a drug-free band. It was just a.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then so then as the when we came out with that Hardline EP, I mean, the whole focus of the band at that point became very like militant, anti-drug, vegan. But actually, none of us were ever straight edge kids.
Okay.
Like we didn't come from that scene, and
sure.
And so it's interesting. So for me, I always make the distinction because I mean we became important to kids in the straight edge scene, but the band itself, so I mean we fit within that scene in that we were drug free, but it was coming from a whole different kind of angle. So we were never like nobody in our band ever like X'd up or dressed like straight edge kids.
Okay.
Our background was more the punk scene, right?
Awesome.
Punk and oi scene. So
that's interesting. Okay.
So that's kind of.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead. Yeah, I was just
gonna say it's a really good example of people being able to take your art and like kind of do with it what they want. Like once you put your art out there, you are no longer in control of it. And so while you may not have intended for this particular group of people to take that and champion it and be like, this is our shit, they did that. And I don't know. I personally think it's fine. I don't see anything wrong with it.
No, I mean, and look, and it's it wasn't completely accidental. I mean, we did sort of say, hey, like we have this thing to say to people, and we try to get it out to different sectors of people, and it did catch on with that scene, right? And primarily because it first caught on in Memphis to like the guys in Raid who were straight edge.
Oh, okay.
Kids. And so that was kind of the inroads, through that scene, and then it kind of like grew like to like Salt Lake City, and then Syracuse, like the Earth Crisis kids got really into it, and then they were like, we're going to start a band, and so so I mean the influence was direct, and it grew into it grew into that scene, and in fact even it's funny. So the guy that I'm in the new band with, Violent Disorder, is one of my oldest friends, Rat, from the UK. So he back then, we did a record with him back in those Hardline days, and it was just like a one-man band thing that he had done back then. But he also, interestingly enough, was like the first person that I've ever known before it was a scene or anything to coin the term like vegan straight edge. Now that said, he wasn't a straight edge kid either. He was a guy from England that was from the punk scene and was drug free and vegan, but he had heard about this thing in the States. Oh, there's this straight edge scene in the States. People don't do drugs. So he's like, I'm vegan straight edge. Right. So, I mean, these influences come in from weird places and they get a life of their own. Again, he's not someone that ever was like Xing up and wearing like a hoodie and like Nikes. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't
like that posy-core look with the with like the gym shorts and the Nikes and the like comb forward with the front poked up a little bit hair, it's like the gym bro stuff, like the jock type stuff. Which I don't really care, man. I'm wearing basketball shorts right now. Like I'm not
It's just
tripping.
funny because, you know, it's like, again, like you go back to Vegan Reich and it's like me and, you know, the bass player were like, we always either had dreadlocks or I was shaving he always had dreads. I was like either having dreads or like shaving my head and then growing dreads out again. Right. Like that was
Yeah.
kind of like, you know, our thing, because again, for me, it's always been a very seamless thing. You know, when I was a kid, I was into the like reggae scene, and then I got into the skinhead scene in the early 80s, shaved my head. But it was always like, to me, that whole thing has always been kind of one thing, right? Like
Right.
this connected thing. So it's very seamless with me. I've been in reggae bands, I'm in oi bands, like it's punk bands. It's to me, they're different music, but it's all kind of connected to one thing for
I
me.
1,000,000% agree with that. I always find it odd when somebody's like, I like hardcore, and I'm like, oh, cool. What about this? They're like, no, it's punk. I don't like that. I'm like, you don't like any punk? And they're like, no, like that's weird. Like I like hardcore, punk, oi. I like all. There's something out of all of that that I like. I don't
Right, right,
typically listen to like the more metal side of stuff. Like I don't
right,
really care for like as an example, Earth Crisis. I
right,
respect Earth Crisis. I've owned some of their albums. I just don't. It's a little too heavy for me.
right,
But
right.
but I mean, you know, I went to Integrity shows, and we did you know, down in Texas we had a pretty healthy hardcore scene down here for a long time. So
Yeah, no, I
still
mean, and
do,
yeah,
honestly.
yeah, and I think, you
But
know, for me too. I mean, for my interest in hardcore was primarily sort of like when hardcore was still a little bit more within the punk scene, right? Like Bad Brains,
yeah,
MDC, like, you know, the bands that now kids might say, well, that's not even hardcore or something, right? But like,
that's kind of my point. Is like
right,
people are like, that's not even hardcore. I'm like, dude, no, neck deep,
right,
not neck deep. Excuse me. When the one that do says arf arf. What is that damn band's called? They're like not a bad band. I just don't. I just
yeah,
not like.
yeah,
I can't. It's to me. It just sounds like a metal band. But
right, right,
man, they just had a new album come out. I can't think of the name of them. Anyways, I don't mean any disrespect.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, yeah, I like. I'm old man. I like a pretty I guess narrow
yeah,
range of sounds, man. I don't know.
yeah,
I like a lot of reggae. I don't know a lot of the old artists' names, but there's
right,
never
right.
been reggae music that came on that I didn't enjoy. So I really enjoy that music a lot.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's you know, it's probably my most like daily, like what I'm mostly listening to usually.
Nice.
Um, you know, large part because I'm sort of like a rageaholic, and reggae keeps me,
Keeps
keeps
you,
me calm. You know, so it's like, you know, I need to kind of medicate myself with reggae, right? Like generally speaking,
dude. That's smart though. You know
yeah,
yourself well enough to understand that. I mean, a lot of people don't. They don't even understand their own like chemical makeup to where
yeah,
like,
yeah.
no, man, I got to do this. Like I'm 11 years sober. I figured out finally one day
Oh,
that
nice.
oh wait, I can't do this. It's just
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
I don't have moderation in my brain. So
Yeah,
um I'm not. I would never consider myself straight edge either. I'm just sober. Like
right,
I don't
right.
smoke or drink or anything. But there's somebody I read somewhere. I don't remember if it was like a comment or in an article or something. I take in so much information every day. It's kind of hard to remember what. But somebody said, "Do you think Ian MacKay or Mackay, however you say his last name, would have ever predicted that like a 90 something second song would have
Right.
done?" And I was like, man, I can't imagine what that guy thinks about sometimes. Like, can you? This
Yeah,
is crazy.
I don't think you
Sorry,
have
people.
any idea.
Like,
I don't think he had any idea. And in my memory of that scene, I mean, it was a very different scene because I was involved in the LA scene, and you know, and it was just a very different scene. But even that said, I don't think that a lot of guys in DC back then that were even part of that quite had the same view. That even by the time it got up to Boston, right? Like, I think even some of those initial kids in DC that were even putting X's on their hands say they don't drink, we're still going outside and smoking a cigarette. Like
right.
it wasn't codified yet. It was like, we're not old enough to drink in the club. We're Xing up. We don't drink. And you know, but it quickly turned into to something. You know, once the Boston kids got a hold of it, you know,
Dude,
with you know, so
I think that's funny to imagine some kid outside smoking a cigarette with an X on his hand. I
yeah.
mean,
I mean, look, it was a very. I just don't. You know, things weren't as
well,
codified back
it was
then.
in its infancy, you know. Had
Yeah,
there hadn't been these like uh thoughts put into place yet. There nobody sat down and said, "Hey, I think we should maybe do this if we're going to call ourselves this. Maybe we should abide by these guidelines, I guess is the best way to put it. And and there's nothing wrong with that. I just was laughing because I can imagine it was a lot different.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm just saying in the very
Right,
infancy, right? Like, and I think quickly, once Minor Threat linked up with D, and I think quickly it did start becoming like this is what it is, right? But and it's very right when that song was written, I don't think it was as clear, it was defined really yet.
Well, because I mean, when the song was written, it wasn't anything. It was just him being pissed off about probably, and I don't know this because I don't know him, but I imagine he was probably just tired of burnouts doing dumb shit around him all the time. And he was you know what? I'm going to stand up and I'm going to declare that I'm not going to do that. And I'm guilty of behaving that way. So I'm not calling anybody anything. Dude, I was a moron for a lot of years. But, I imagine that he was probably just an intellectual type dude that was just sick and tired of the dumb shit happening around him. And he was like, all right, I'm going to stand up against this. And it just, that kind of thing will start a movement, period. Hard stop.
And it's funny, I mean, how people change, even like I said, so for me, in the LA scene, and, there were people that did get into straight edge in the LA scene, like the Uniform Choice guys were around in the early punk scene and they did get into it. But for a lot of us, we were it was just not our thing. We were we wanted to be out of control and crazy. And that's what it was for us. So it is funny that, but a few years later, that just separate from that scene, that on my own, I was like, okay, you know what, I'm going to stop drinking now. I'm not going to, do anything else. I mean, I definitely fit in with the same thing, but even then it was that scene never appealed to me. It was just a different scene.
Yeah. Whenever there was rules set in place, that was probably my, reason for not really being interested in it, because it was so, well, with anything really. I mean, that's what drew me to punk. It was that it was kind of the freedom to be myself, but myself was punk. So it's I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing, man. Because it's do what you want as long as it fits in this, within this criteria. And it's, I understand how silly it can sound to some people. It's just something that's incredibly important to me. Random question for you. You're in California still. Do you ever listen to the Agrolites?
Yeah. In fact, yeah.
They're here right now today in Houston. I was going to try to make it out to the show, but it just started way too early, and it wasn't going to work. But I love that band.
Yeah, Roger's a friend of mine, the keyboardist. So.
Oh, nice. Dude, I love that band. My first real experience with them was with that Tim Armstrong album, and I was like, dude, what is this? Who's playing with him? And then I found out who it was, and I was like, dude, this shit is awesome.
They're great. They're really, I mean,
dude, I own I think they have 5 albums. I think I own all of them. I really enjoy their music quite a bit.
They definitely know what they're they've got it down.
Yeah. Dude, I was at my store once, I don't know, a couple of years ago, and this woman was in there, and I think I had it on a playlist or something, and I was listening to it, and she's like, oh man, what is this? And I told her, and she's like, do you have any of it? And I said, yeah, I got a couple of their albums. And I went and I picked it up and I handed it to her, and she flips it over, and she's like, you're telling me these are some white dudes? And I was like, I mean, I was like, I've never met them, but I think, and then I said, maybe Latino or something. I was like, yeah, but they're not what you would think. Listen to the music. She was cracking up, man. It was just with this black woman. She was so funny, bro. I laughed with her for probably 15 minutes about that, because I never really thought about it. It blew her mind. It was awesome. That guy's voice is fucking amazing, man. I love the way he sings, dude.
No, it's great. And in fact, so you mentioned it, I'll tie this in, because probably, I don't know if this year, it might come out next year, but so I actually did there's a half finished reggae record that is going to come out next year. That's, me singing and guitar, and Chuck Treese, who was in Bad Brains and McRad, playing bass.
Whoa.
And then Mike McDermott, that was in Bouncing Souls and now plays with Joan Jett, and Roger from Agrolites is on it. So that's So
I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah, it's been kind of sitting in the can for a while, because again, it's something that got delayed by the pandemic and a bunch of stuff, but it's definitely on the list, and that's a full record that's on the list.
Dude, hell yeah. Dude, that's awesome. That is awesome. I mean, I just love when people are, what's the word I'm looking for here? They have this desire to hit this pressure valve and just release artwork to the world, whatever that might be. It could be
Right,
a
right.
painting. Like I got some friends that are like street artists, and every time they have something come out, I don't give a shit, man. It's awesome. I love it. I like looking at it. I like thinking
Right,
about it. I
right.
like showing my friends. And it's the same with music, dude. I'm happy that you're doing stuff, man. It's amazing. It would be a sad thing to find out that you were just like, I give up. I'm done. Like that's just so not what I want to hear from people that I appreciate, you know.
I actually
Uh,
feel like more energetic and productive now than maybe I've ever been. I mean,
that's amazing.
I I think there's because not only is all this new stuff, but there's we actually have probably like 3/4 the way finished new Vegan Reich record that was just my old band Pressure, which I did with Chuck Treese, which kind of like a it is hardcore in an older hardcore way. It's not like kids now wouldn't probably consider it hardcore, like fast hardcore punk, right? Sort of melodic.
Probably the stuff I'm into.
Yeah,
It sounds like my speed.
a little bit of like street punk, a little bit, that kind of thing. We're gonna be doing that again. So I've got like 5 or 6 different things that and part of that is my kids are grown now. So
Okay.
I was for a lot of years I was just doing the label, running and running the merchandising company and raising the kids. They're both grown women now, so that's like I can I get back out on the road and
Right. Yeah. I mean, dude,
do a lot of music.
First off, congratulations on having 2 grown ass kids and not, having some
Yeah,
kind of, I don't know, whatever. Just that's awesome. I've got 3
yeah,
kids, and having my kids is, I mean, it's literally my favorite thing in the world. Right before we got on here, I was holding my 3-year-old like on my back and like
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
throwing him around. Like it's what I live for, man. I wake up every day and I do these videos and I do my label and I do my shop, and people are like, oh man, you must really. I'm like, yeah, you don't understand though, man. I'm trying to set this up so that it can be self-sufficient and I can just pass it on to my monsters and let them have it. And they do whatever they want. When I'm gone, it don't matter. I just want to have something
Yeah.
to give to them, to where they know Dad loved you and he worked really hard so that you can have something nice.
No,
And
that's great, and you're lucky. That's a great age. I mean, I've enjoyed every phase of it, and I enjoyed. My daughters are women now, and I enjoy that phase. But I definitely had a blast when they were.
oh man, mine are 11, 9, and 3, and I wish I had another baby. My wife is like, hell
Yeah,
no.
yeah,
I like little kids and they're fun. They're
yeah, yeah,
cute. I like having like babies around. They're fun to me because they're hilarious. Like little kids.
yeah, yeah.
There's very few things in this world that are naturally just as funny as a 3 to 5-year-old. 3, 4,
Oh,
and
yeah,
5-year-olds. They say the craziest shit. They do the wildest stuff. I mean, they get hurt all the time because they do
yeah, yeah,
crazy shit, but it's fun to be around them, man. Are you planning on okay? So the violent disorder stuff, I knew that was with a buddy from the UK. What are
right.
the plans for maybe doing some live stuff with that? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we're basically we got some guys for like a stateside, doing live shows because it's just too much of a pain to be flying over people from the UK. So basically, the way it's
Right.
going to work is there's going to be a live lineup here, and some of the guys from here may be part of the lineup in the UK.
Okay.
But for me, it's pretty easy. I go, I visit friends in the UK. I'm sort of back and forth. So it's so we'll see. Like the guys that can get away to do UK shows with us, they'll be part of it too. The guys that can't, then we'll have guys there, doing stuff. It's kind of the live lineup is we're open to it switching around a little bit.
Okay.
The recording's kind of a set thing, and we're on some of the newer stuff. The guys that are, in the live lineup here are going to actually be, on some of the next recordings. They just
Okay, nice.
didn't work out, So everybody's, we're getting everybody involved with, as we do new stuff, and we've actually got a lot of releases, like already in process. This EP is coming out now. I'm finishing the mix on a second EP. That's getting sent to the plant. We've got, those are both 7 inches. Then we've got a 5-song 12-inch, and then there's a full and that's actually, I mean, a lot of it is already recorded. So we're
Nice.
we're making like fast progress.
That's
Sure.
awesome. Who does most of the songwriting? Is that your responsibility, or is that kind of?
So in this, you know, in all my other bands, I've always written all the music and the lyrics.
Okay.
This band is purely Rat in England. My friend is doing all the music,
Nice.
and I'm singing on it and I'm playing lead guitars on it.
That's gotta be kind of nice though, to not have to have the responsibility of writing for a little while. You can just do the lyrics and then
It's great. It
show up
actually
and play.
it brings a whole different way. I can think outside the box with like the melodies I'm writing, because when you're writing music and melodies in your head at the same time, it creates a certain, I don't know. They're tied together. When someone else
Right.
hands you the music and says, "Here, put some vocals to this," you're not stuck on what you thought it was supposed to be when you wrote the music.
That's exactly right, dude.
Right.
That was put perfectly. It's one thing when you write a song, when you write a riff that goes da na 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 na, your vocals are almost certainly going to go da na 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 na.
Yeah.
But if somebody hands you something, you can be like da na na na, and the guitar might be doing something a little bit different, and you can do longer, drawn out syllables. I don't know if I'm articulating this very well, but I think you know what I mean for
No,
sure.
yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that's nice about this is most of the bands I've done, I mean, I've usually played guitar and sung at the same time.
So I'm so bad at that.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. It used to be nothing to me. And then when you don't do it that for a while, you know, I mean, I could do it still, but it used to be like effortless. And now I have to go, wait a minute, I got to get this, you know, but this band, I'm just singing and it's enjoyable. I can
That's
run
awesome.
around. I can run around the stage more, jump into the crowd, like whatever. I'm a very energetic person, so it's better. Like it is nice to not be stuck with a guitar for this band.
Well, if you can't tell, I tend to move around a lot. I've got really bad ADHD,
Yeah.
and dude, when I was playing music, man, I write some of the music, but I had to do just vocals. I couldn't do
Right.
there was no way I was gonna be able to stand still on a stage and not, you know, I would perform terribly if I had to do that. So I was very
Right.
grateful to have my buddies involved. So what is the schedule looking like for the next, I don't know, let's say the rest of the year? When are we having some music hit shelves, I guess?
So we just got the vinyl in today, and
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, you were talking about that in our thread.
yeah, I don't know. Let me see. It's getting kind of dark here. Let me see if you can see this or not. Let's see. Okay.
Is it? Oh, it's black and with a white interior, like a, I don't know how to say it. It's like black and white, like mixed vinyl.
Yeah, that one's a black and white one. And again, so thematically, like that was kind of our tribute to the whole two-tone scene.
That's exactly what I thought when I saw it.
Yeah, and then hold on a second. And these just came. So we've got it. You know, these records have a lot of like inserts and sticker. Like, so we're putting it all together. So we're hoping, you know, by the end of the week these should start shipping out to everybody that did the pre-orders. There's the sort of tribute to the Jamaican flag. You got the red, yellow, and green on it.
Man, that's pretty. Dude, you're right, man. Vinyl's so freaking fun. It's
right?
like, it's so much fun.
It's so great opening the box and like looking at all the
right.
Yep. Oh, and then I'll show. I don't know if you can see this too, but we'll look. So we just got the cassettes a couple days ago too. There's the wait. I don't know if it's.
Oh man, I need to get my hands on a cassette, dude. I'm a cassette junkie, dude. I love tapes.
You'll like this too. I don't know if you've seen these, but it's a two-tone.
Yes, dude, those are badass. I have let's see here. Do you ever heard of a band called Empire Down out of Minneapolis?
Yeah.
Dude, so I did a tape for those guys, and let's see. So every tape I do, we do like the standard one. So we did a purple tape.
Right.
And then my label's called 31 Records, and everything I release, I do a second run of 31 copies of, and we did a two-tone like pink and blue.
Oh, no, that's sick. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's great.
If you give me like a PO box or something, man, or whatever shipping address, I'll send you some tapes, man. Some of the stuff I put out, man.
Okay. Yeah, I'll send you some stuff too. So
hell yeah, that'd be awesome. But
yeah, I love tapes. I mean, I've collected band demos going back to the 80s. I've got a ton of stuff. You know, so
I do a lot of stuff on my streams where I'll make like a mixtape, and we'll do the playlist of the mixtape live, and then I'll give tapes away. And I just did a you remember that band Downfall that was like in between Op Ivy and Rancid?
Yeah.
I found some of their music, and I found out that if you take the very beginning, where it's like a weird sound clip thing, if you chop off 2 seconds of that, and then this weird outro sound that they have, if you chop those things off, you get exactly like 29 minutes and like 58 seconds worth of music.
Right.
And I found these blank, like solid black cassette tapes on eBay. And
Right.
so I bought them, and I'm making like a bootleg like set of like 20 downfall tapes, and I'm like making artwork and everything. I'm gonna give a bunch of them away on my channel. It's
Oh,
gonna be
nice,
awesome.
nice.
Dude, I love doing shit like that, man.
Yeah, yeah.
I could geek out about this stuff all day.
Yeah, it's funny because I mean I literally just did tapes because I love tapes. So it to me, they're not a money making proposition.
No,
right?
it's really not.
Nor
Unfortunately,
are 7 inches really, right? I mean, so look, that's another thing that it's going back to literally the audiophile thing, but I'm a stickler for like lacquer mastering on records. Like I love the old analog sound. Like I pressed it in the United States. I'm not doing because in Europe it's like direct metal mastering for the records, and it doesn't have the sound that's that I grew up with, right? So I did everything. We had had the lacquers cut here, in Southern California, and just trying to get as close as possible to that old like 70s rock sound in the whole thing. But again, it pushes the price up of the vinyl,
right,
like a lot. I mean, we could have got this whole record done for half price in Europe, and it's not that I wouldn't ever do that for other releases. It's just because I'm in this band, I wanted it to sound an exact specific way.
Dude, when it's your baby, man, it's more or less about bringing the product to the table that you are proud of than it is making a dollar. Like the dollar is like, dude, look, I'll make more money in the future. I got a job. I'll make the money.
Yeah.
But if this comes out to the world, it's got to be a certain quality.
Right.
I appreciate that a lot. I'm actually more excited to hear this now on vinyl than I was 20 minutes ago. I didn't even consider something like that. That's pretty amazing. Do you have a specific like record player that you like or anything? I use a Fluence record player. You're familiar with them?
I just have like an old like a Techniques DJ kind of table.
Oh, you can't go wrong with that. Those are machines, bro. Those are monsters.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not. I mean, there are fancier turntables that you could get.
Oh, dude, yeah, mine. I feel like mine's nothing, and it's pretty nice. But I mean, I know people that have ones that like just the plate where the record sits was like $600. I'm like, that's fucking crazy, man.
Yeah.
Like,
to me, it's a workhorse. I've had it since, God, I don't know. I've had that turntable forever as well, right? As soon as
man, it's interesting how this stuff becomes an extension of us as people,
right?
Like your personality is kind of woven into your belongings, I guess. I mean, obviously, right? Like you don't buy stuff that's not really you. And so like, it's kind of cool, man. I like to look at people's record player setups and things like that because it tells you a lot about the person, If you go to somebody's house and they have like some beater that's very clearly not taken care of, I mean, you'll learn a lot about a person very quickly. Like, oh man, maybe I don't want to loan them some of my records,
Yeah.
But
no, I mean, look, my records from the 80s are like in such great shape because I just was always fanatical about. Luckily,
man, that's awesome. Do you have a pretty extensive collection?
I do. I mean, I lost. It's my punk and hardcore collection from then is great. I was living in a place that flooded, maybe 20 years.
I know all about that.
30 years ago, maybe, and I lost. Luckily the room that because I had my different records in different sections. So like my favorite reggae, punk and hardcore and oi and all that all survived.
Nice.
My bigger sort of like rock collection and all that, I had probably like 5,000 pieces of, vinyl. That all just got like wiped out, like just everything. Over the years I've gotten maybe, I don't know, I'm probably half of it, I probably have a couple thousand pieces of just, the rock collection back, and I'm always, if I see stuff that I had, I'm like, oh, I'll get that again. But for that, vinyl is I don't spend ridiculous amounts of money on buying like old 70s or 60s rock stuff. It's just if I see it and it's cheap, I get it, but
yeah.
But yeah, I've got a lot of the, again, stuff that was $3, like, and it, I mean, even though like I wasn't big into like the Minor Threat scene, like it was a record, the DC scene, I should say, and like Minor Threat, like it wasn't like a huge thing for me, but I bought those 7 inches, listened a couple times, put it away. Those, or like,
You
all
still
those
have
old,
those original?
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That's
So
awesome. That's pretty cool, man. Like
yeah,
that's
all that stuff.
awesome.
So
Man.
yeah, so it's it's cool, and I mean it's funny. It's like my oldest daughter, both of my daughters love music. My oldest daughter's into vinyl. My youngest is more of like she's young enough that it's just streaming for her and her phone,
Yeah.
right? But my oldest is always like, can I have your records when you die? And I'm like, yeah, of course, but kind of a brutal question. But,
Right? You're like, damn, man. I don't know. I wasn't thinking about that. Thanks.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
dude, kids are wild. They say shit
yeah,
that they don't realize. We'll just be like,
yeah,
oh, do you have any particular piece that stands out in your collection? And I don't want to say like, what's your favorite record of all time, but is there a 1 or 2 items that you own that are just like, never for sale, no matter the situation? Like they're your favorites. Like, I guess that's it. I guess that is what I'm asking.
yeah. I'm trying to think because there's so much stuff. Damn, I don't know. Like, I love the what's the one, the Poison Idea 7-inch with like Jesus on the front. I can't remember what that's called. That one, I love that one. I'm trying to think, man. It's not, there's not like really like one, there's certain things, so it's not so much like the rarity in that sense. There's certain things that mean to me about like time. Like, so for instance, this isn't really that rare of a thing, but in like 82, I was at a reggae show and dressed as like a young skinhead kid with like bleach, like the bleacher kind of jeans, right?
Yeah.
All that stuff. And one of the dudes from Bad Brains was there at the reggae show. That was before I had ever even heard it because it was a whole world away. Like 82, they were doing their thing on the East Coast. I had not heard of them. He walked up to me and said, "Hey, you should check us out." Like, because he could see that I was like into that stuff. He was like, "You're at this reggae show. You'd like us." He gave me the Roar Sessions tape, and so it's just the normal Roar Sessions tape that they put out. Like it's not like a demo or anything like that. But the fact that he gave it to me, I've got that like in a special, like things like that, right?
That's exactly the answer I'm looking for, man. I don't want to be, like, I mean, I've got a really rare record down here that's from Tim Armstrong that's like incredibly expensive, right? That's probably like my coolest one that I own. But like my favorite records are all stuff kind of like what you said. They're like nothing particularly, blowing your hair back, but they mean something to me.
Yeah, I mean, like that. If I went to sell that, then it's just a normal. It's sure, it's the first pressing from that release, but it's not that valuable,
right?
But for me, I would never get rid of that.
Because right.
Memory, it was just a cool memory, right?
The value to you is far beyond money. It's like, nah, I could never replace this because it's the only one that exists is the one that I got from that situation.
Yeah.
I just picked up a do what?
Oh, I was just gonna say, and just any of the records back then that like I ordered from the bands and I got them and they sent like a note with it or something.
So awesome.
That kind of stuff, right?
Yes, dude, that's so good, man. Man, that makes me so happy that just to hear these stories because I lost. You remember when Hurricane Harvey happened in Houston a couple years back? We lost our home in that, so everything I have now. Everything is like since then. I don't own anything. I have my Rancid and Out Come the Wolves shirt from '96. I still have that, and I've got like a painting that my grandpa brought home from like a war, like when he was way before I was even a thought. Like, other than that, I don't really have anything since from before then. So everything I've got, it was either like collected. Yeah, it's interesting. Some of my records are sentimental for different reasons. I have friends that gave me something or something my wife bought me. I oftentimes when I ask somebody a question like that, I'm more or less looking like, hey, what's your favorite thing to like just this? And I want to know the story behind it. I'm more of a story guy than anything.
Right.
That's awesome, dude. Hell yeah. What are some of the first bands that you got into listening to punk? What's your punk rock origin story? Tell me real quick before we go how you got into punk rock stuff because you were around in like the first wave of it, no?
Right. Yeah. So I mean, just like real quick, like I said, childhood of like reggae background, right? That then when the two-tone thing hit, I immediately was like, oh, this is cool because I already kind of but that was sort of so I had heard that before, even though that came like whatever that was, like 79. That's a little later than punk, but
Right.
so when 77, I was a skater kid too, right? So I was even just a little, skater kid. So before that, even, I mean, I was hearing stuff like Clash and Sex Pistols because the older kids were listening to it, but I didn't know that it was like a scene. To me, that was just still part of like rock and roll, right?
Right.
They're playing at skate parks, people are playing it on, Ghetto Blasters playing a tape of it or whatever. So I heard it, but I didn't really know what it was. And then through the sort of two-tone thing, in 81, I kind of simultaneously started hearing about like the oi bands because going into the record shops and I'd see it and I'm like, oh, that looks cool. And then, like I said, decline. So being in California, like Black Flag, Social Distortion were, local to us, Circle Jerk, all the SoCal stuff, Dead Kennedys. So all those, and those are all the bands that I got to see early, like Shattered Faith. I think the first gig I went to was Shattered Faith.
Dude, that's awesome.
Probably. So, that's, so that's kind of my like origin story is all that stuff, right? Like, Olympic Auditorium, like going, just that whole scene, Suicidals, like just everything that was happening out here. And we were lucky. We got to see the Texas bands were coming out too. So we got to see the Dicks early on, Big Boys, all that stuff. It was great.
That is pretty awesome, man. That's the only thing. I'm a proud Texan, man. I love this place. Right. There's a lot of stuff that I love about my state, but the only thing that sucks is that when I was coming up, it was pre-internet. And so just a very, very large amount of bands just couldn't make it down here. And if they did, it was once or twice. That was it. And a lot of times I was too young to even go see that stuff. So I missed out on some of that. But, everybody has their own journey. And I wouldn't change what I've had.
There's always a place. I mean, for me, like if I had my choice of anywhere to be in the world, it would have been like London from like late 60s to like early 80s. London would have been it for me, right? Like
nice.
But
hell yeah,
we don't get to pick, right? So
right.
Outside of that, Southern California, have always been very lucky that everybody comes through here for the most part.
Right, that's awesome. I mean, I'm not jealous. I'm more like, dude, that's awesome. I wish I could be there. But like, I guess jealous is not really the right word. I don't have no hatred for people. I can't stand people that get like bitter about stuff like that. It's like, bro, why would you wish that somebody else had a worse time because you weren't fortunate enough to be there? That's weird.
Texas, like I said, Texas has always had a great scene, and we always were looking at like
we really have
and going, oh, that's like Texas, like so it's always like you're looking from somewhere else, and from us we're going, oh, Texas looks really
grass
cool.
is always greener, right? You know what I'm saying? Until you get there. I'm very, very proud of Texas. I love the scene that we've had. We've at least as far as I know, we've had a very healthy, thriving scene for my entire life. I've always had places to go and bands to see. I've met a million different bands from down here. That's pretty awesome, man. I always wondered when you said that people there wasn't like a scene yet. You just hear like a cassette tape or something on a boombox. I've thought about that a lot. Like, man, what was that like to hear that music? And it wasn't associated with anything yet. Is that kind of how you were able to experience that for the first time?
So much stuff. I mean, because of, again, there's no internet. So the gigs were like,
crazy.
We would go to the local, to the record shops, and we were, whatever it was, whether we were going up to LA or Long Beach, or there was some really great record shops in Orange County too. But, we'd get on the bus as kids and journey to wherever we need to those record shops, go through for the overseas import orders that were coming, they'd say, hey, rough trade order is coming in on Thursday, and we ditch school and go get records, right?
So good.
And then there'd be flyers there for a gig, and we go, oh shit, like, we've got to find someone with it, because this is before we drove, right? I mean, we're like 12, 13.
Right.
We got to find someone we know with a car to take us, and sometimes that'd be my dad. Like, my dad would just like drive us somewhere and drop us off and be like, I'm going to go do my own thing, and I'll see you guys at like 2 a.m. and we'll pick us up. And, and other times would be some like, I mean, just everything was different then. So, I had friends who were like 14 who would just steal their mom's car because she was like drunk, and they would just go, she would be passed out, and they'd just take her car, and then we'd go somewhere. Right. Like, it's just, different times.
Man, I'm not gonna put a name out there because I don't want to start any trouble. But I had this friend, and when we were in like high school. Like Houston is really, really spread out. I think LA is kind of similar.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a big, vast place. And going to a show from where I grew up was like a 45-minute drive minimum, right?
Right, right,
So I remember we had this friend, and him, it was my buddy's sister, and then a couple of other friends, whatever. But my friend was dating a man. He was gay, or is gay,
right, right,
dating a man. But the man, back then, we just didn't. I didn't think of it as odd, right?
right,
Looking back on it, I'm like, what? It was this dude. It was a teacher,
right.
and it was like a full-grown adult, and we
Yeah,
were like 17. I think I was
right, right.
16. I think my buddy was 17. But we would have to call that person up. I'm trying to be vague with the names and stuff, but like, we'd call
Yeah,
that person up and be like, hey, man, is there any way we could get a ride into Houston, man? We're going to go to a show. And then my buddy would be like, yeah, I want to hang out anyway. So he would come and pick us up. And I don't know. He never did anything like out
yeah.
of line that I saw.
You
I don't
know,
know
like
how
it
old he
just
was, but, you know, we just had
different
to,
world.
whatever we could do to get to these shows, man. It was
Look, different world back then. I mean, I remember,
very,
you know, in the 80s that like the girls that were like 14, 15 that were in the punk scene would be like, this is my 35-year-old boyfriend.
I
Like,
remember that in the 90s for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. And their parents knew, like that dude would like go to the, like, it wasn't like secret. It was just like,
No, it wasn't secret.
you know,
Yeah.
and you know, I mean, so a different world, right? Like, I mean, you know, so it's just
I've always wondered when people, well, it's always been weird, but
right,
I've wondered, like, when did it like flip over to being like outrageous? Like
right.
it's like, I don't know, it's a weird conversation, I guess. I don't really care, but like, yeah, that situation was wild. Like, in hindsight, it was really insane, kind of. But man,
Yeah,
we were
no,
like
it's
so grateful for this dude. He had this little shitty Miata
right,
convertible, and we
right.
were like on the back seat, like, man, let's go down to Houston and go see this show.
Look, it's just
But
different world, right? Like, I mean,
yeah, very
my grandmother was having like her first kid at 15, right? And like
right.
you know, my mom was like pregnant with me at 17. It just seemed very like, I
Life
think
was just different back then.
life was different, you know, and so
I
you
mean,
know,
I
it's
remember my dad taking me and my sister when I was in like elementary school to a bar to go on a date and leaving us in the car with the keys in the car on, radio playing,
yeah,
with
to say,
two like with like a 7-year-old and a 6-year-old in the car for like 5 hours when he's out on a date with his lady. And like nobody thought it
100%.
was weird. And they were just like,
No,
hey kids, y'all okay? We're like, yeah, we're all right. They're like, all right, see you. Like,
is it too dark here? Or is it okay still for this?
I mean,
Like,
I can see you fine.
okay, cool, cool.
Yeah, yeah. What are you outside?
No, I'm in my office, but it's I could turn it on if it's like
Oh no, dude. I mean, it's not bothering me at all. You look fine.
we've been I had natural light coming in through the window, and then I just like all of a sudden I'm like not looking at it, and I just realized I'm like, wait, it's actually dark here now. Like,
yeah,
like,
it looks fine on my end, dude. I'm
okay,
all
yeah,
good.
it's fine, it's cool. But no, it's I was just gonna say, like, as kids, like I had friends' dads that would literally go, hey, go down to the liquor store and get me a 6-pack of
Yeah.
beer. And
Oh, dude.
there was not even like nobody cared. I mean, it wasn't like we had to go and try to like do. We just go in and say, "Hey, it's for our friend's dad." It's not like he knew them. They would just sell you. I mean, literally, we would be like 11 years old, and they would just sell us a 6-pack of beer.
I remember when cigarettes were just like on the aisle at the grocery store, and you could go and pick up a pack and put it in your cart. Like, and we used to steal cigarettes at like age 13 because they were there. They were like, yeah, life was definitely different in the 80s and 90s, man. Like, I had hella fun.
I think young people don't actually fully believe it sometimes, or think that people are exaggerating. But it's like, man, it was a different world.
I remember very clearly having the first memories of being in a car. I was like in the front seat, and I don't think I was even sitting down. I think I was like standing up, like on my knees, facing the back, talking to my sister or my friend or something. No seatbelt, no like.
Most of my parents' cars did not even have seatbelt. I mean, they really didn't. Like, I mean, not in the back seat, at least. You know, like there was no way to buckle up.
People are so soft and safe now. Like, and I'm, they're probably better for it. But like,
well, this is so this is a funny thing. But so we used to regularly go up to Gilman Street, the club.
That's amazing.
But that would literally, I mean, it seems insane now. A friend would just pull up in like a pickup truck. and we would pile into the back of it. There was no possible way. And then he would just drive like 95 miles an hour from like Southern California to you know, Berkeley or whatever. And you're just not strapped in, just all sitting in the, I mean, if anything happened, we would have just all been dead. Right. But like, that was like we would do it not every weekend, but anytime there wasn't a show down here and there was a good show there, I mean, you know, a couple times a month we were there, if not more.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So,
you know how sometimes you'll hear something and it'll spark a memory?
Yeah,
like, dude, when you said that, shout out to my boy AJ. He'll never see this, but shout out to AJ anyways, man. He used to have this like orange Dodge pickup truck, and it was like the same thing. We lived out in like Northwest Houston, and it was like a good 50 minute drive into town to go to this place. I don't know if you've ever been to Fitzgerald's in Houston. And we would ride, 2 or 3 of us would have to be in the back of the truck. And I remember very clearly, I think it was a Casualties show, but it was a punk show in town.
Right.
I remember by the time it was over with and we were getting in the truck to leave, the weather had changed quite a bit and it was like raining, and we had to ride in the back of that truck on I-10 on the freeway for, dude. Yeah. What the stuff we used to do just to get to the shows was just a lot different, you know? Yeah. That's awesome. That is great, man.
Dude, well, we got to talk real quick just because.
No, dude, I'm chilling, bro. Yeah. I got as much time as you want. I just didn't want to keep you.
Because you got a CMI shirt on, and
yeah.
Shout out to Adam. We can't talk about we can't let we can't not talk about them and talk about Oi or New Blend, because like it's just amazing what they have so like brought back the scene. I've told them directly too. Like it's like, I haven't seen anything like the energy in this scene since back in the original scene, right? It's just amazing, like what they're doing, if not more now. I mean, it's much bigger than it's ever been.
I 1,000,000% agree with that. Like when I started this channel and I had nobody to watch me or anything, one of the first people that gave me some of their time was Adam, and that was my first big video, was talking to him. And I just reached out because I heard some of their demo stuff and was like, what the fuck? This is so good. Yeah. And I reached out and was like, yo, we got to talk, man. He's like, sure. And he got on on his phone in his car for like 30 minutes and talked to me. And it did like 10,000 views when I had nobody on my channel yet. And ever since then, I've had him back on the show one more time. I've had Chris on the show. I've seen him play like 4 times. I drove up this year on my birthday, drove to Austin to see him play in Austin on my birthday. And like, I love this band, bro. Like, I don't give a shit. You don't like this band? Fuck off. I don't care. Like, they're so good.
I mean, to me, it's just like and like I said, I'm not like a huge hardcore person, but they've got like the perfect amount of hardcore fused with oil. Like, it's just the sound. Dude,
it's a really great blend, man.
Yeah,
very
good blend. A good sound. So.
Let me ask you this. I was telling somebody, because they were trying to get me to explain it to them. I said, okay. I said, back in the 90s, there was a band called Blood for Blood. They did their thing and blah, blah, blah. And I said, after they kind of went away, there was another band called Wisdom in Chains. I was like, and then, they're not so active anymore. And I said, now you have this band CMI. I feel like they're like the natural progression of that. I don't want to say sound, because they don't sound like either band. I guess they kind of have some similarities to some Blood for Blood stuff, but it's more like an attitude. Yeah, it's this feeling I get when I listen to them, man. I've lost like 32 pounds in the last 8 months, and I'm not joking. The linchpin to me getting off my ass was listening to Casual Violence and being like, man, I talked to this dude, and he was just like right after a gym session, and I was like, I felt like such a pussy, and I was like, I'm not trying to get out there and get big or anything, dude. I just want to be healthy and like quit being a bum, right? And so, like, yeah, dude, music can do powerful, powerful things. And shout out to CMI, bro, for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just felt like if we're talking about Oi, and I saw your shirt, we have to mention them because they just fucking kill it, in all ways,
What's up with people that are like, I guess it's just the way of the world now, man. Like, I'll talk about them on a video, or I'll put up like a live set or something, and there's these fucking people, dude. They just get on here and they just talk crap. And I don't know, man. They're a good band, and they're good for the scene, and they're keeping things alive. It's like I don't get it. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm just gonna start bitching and moaning.
There's always gonna be fucking haters, but it's
yeah. I guess that means they're doing something right. You don't get haters if you suck at everything. Like if you're just not doing shit. But they have a sound. I don't really know how to describe it, dude. It's like, I guess I do. It's like AC/DC if they were like a punk band. Like it's yeah, like it's just like this rock and roll oi hard. I don't really know, man. It's
No, it's good.
very
It's a great mix. It's a great mix. I mean, whatever, like, you know, people could say it's this or that, but I mean, the mix of elements has come together in a great way. You know?
simple stuff is really hard to make very, like good.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
believe that their stuff is like, when you see a painting and it's like, it doesn't look really intricate. And then you go try to like recreate it. You're like, oh, that's really fucking hard to do. That's how I feel about their music. You're like, oh, that sounds kind of simple. I'm like, okay, go play it. And you're like, oh, I guess I kind of can't. And it's like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
not hard. You can't rewrite it. You can't replicate it. It's
No,
just
no,
tough.
yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
really enjoy their music, man.
yeah,
And
so,
dude, shout out to Lionheart Records.
dude, fuck, he's killing it.
So I'm doing like a thing, like I don't even know how this happened, man. There's a dude that goes by Canary in the Pit, and Lionheart's working with him, and I'm working with him too. So like, I just shout out to Lionheart because of that label is why I do the stuff like the second tape with the different colors. All my tapes have these cards that come with them that are all hand numbered.
Okay, right.
I don't know if you can see it or not,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
anyways, they're all so like that kind of stuff is important to me, man. Like, yeah, you'll see it when I send you some of this stuff. The shit looks awesome, and it's because of a label like that. When I got some CMI stuff, like specifically CMI, I remember thinking like, damn, dude, like the presentation, like they care about this. So when I do the bullshit detector 7-inch this summer or fall, whatever, bro, you wait till that shit comes out, man. Fucking wait. It's gonna look awesome. It's gonna be badass, man.
No, Lionheart, he's killing it. I was so impressed the first stuff I saw by him,
Yeah,
and I was late to the game on his label. I mean,
me too.
For me, it was all with like CMI stuff, right? Like but I was like,
I was late to it too.
But he does an amazing job. Nice dude. I mean, I've only like talked to him a little bit, via text or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But great, great stuff.
Yeah, I just like to give people some flowers, man. It's nice to see people still doing stuff that they very clearly care about, and they take their time and energy to do it right. I assume that you're going to do that too, based on just a little bit you told me about how important, particular.
Same thing. We're doing like stamp numbered, trying to just make it. I mean, we just figure look, vinyl's a limited thing. It's like we have a passion for it. The kids that are buying have it, so we just try to like every little thing. We're putting stickers in it. It's got like some badges are coming coming with it. Trying to just make you feel like you get something, because it's insane to me. I mean, you have to, because it's so expensive. But like I grew up when like you were able to get like 7 inches for $1 and then $3.
Right.
So to me, even though it's like a break-even proposition, if someone's spending $10, I want them to open that package and be like, "Wow, I got something." Right,
dude. 100%. Can I show you something real quick before we go?
Yeah.
Here, check this out. So, all right. So,
hold on. Let me. Oh, never mind. I was going to turn the line, but we're almost done. I'll just leave it like this.
Yeah. I mean. Yeah. Honestly, dude, when you get closer to releasing your stuff, if you want to talk again, I'm all about it, man. I love this shit. So the first album that I ever had anything to do with on vinyl was a dude named Dylan Disaster and the Revelry, and Pete from the Bouncing Souls recorded and engineered all his stuff, and they did this album here, and I had nothing to do with this part of it, right? My logo's on there because I had some money involved, right?
Right.
And so I was like, okay, what do I do to make this special? And I only did a certain amount of copies, and so I'm an artist. I do a lot of stuff. So I did, check this out. So I did a pressing card for that, but it's obviously larger. It goes,
right.
It goes the size of it's like a 4x5 or something. I did stickers with it that are only with they only come with my copies. And then I did 31 where I did I hand silk screen these on myself.
Nice.
Yeah, so there's 31 of these. And yeah, dude.
So that's dude, so it's funny because it's like, again, I think we think alike, but same thing. This release for us was 70 it's our 72nd release, right? That Uprising for Uprising. So that's how many cassettes we did, right?
Woo!
Like, just
That's so badass, dude.
Yeah.
I can't wait to get my hands on that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you like rock and roll type shit?
Yeah.
You ever listen to that band, the Gaslight Anthem?
Yeah. I know. Yeah.
I love that fucking band. I'll send you a copy of this album, dude. I got a couple more of these ones. I'll send you one with this cover on it.
Okay, do that. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, man, it's been awesome speaking with you. I feel like we kind of knew each other before we even met. That's crazy,
no, it's
man.
great. I would love to talk again. And I think
absolutely.
think you already ordered a 7-inch. I think, right?
I did. I ordered one of the ones with the test press.
Yeah, so I'll throw in like a cassette for, unless I don't know if you already ordered, but I'll hook you up with some other stuff as well.
I sincerely appreciate that. If you want a couple extra bucks and you got a shirt laying around, let me know. I'll grab a shirt too, man.
Yeah, we've actually got them coming in. I'll text you about it. So
just let me know. Let me know.
Those are showing up Friday. So
what is the schedule for the next few months? What do you got going on exactly? Like I know you got this record, this 7-inch coming out. You have another 7-inch?
We have another 7-inch coming out that's probably 2.5 months out from so this one's coming out this week, and 2.5, 3 months with the second one. And the second one, people will see. I can't really explain the whys or hows, but they're kind of connected thematically.
Okay.
When they get the next one, so they're tied together again. I like to do stuff like that. It's they're kind of a pack. They're related to each other.
That's awesome.
And then we are trying to get ready for shows like in October, basically.
Hell yeah. What do you feel about, or how do you feel about maybe talking again in like November? We can talk about like some of the songs, some of the reception to the songs, and some of the live shows, and just touch base back, right around the holidays.
That would be great.
Awesome, man. Well, dude, it's amazing talking to you, man. I appreciate your time. I love what you're doing, and it's honestly kind of strange talking to somebody that I've listened to, way back when. It's awesome, man. It's awesome. It's really cool that we can connect like this. So I appreciate it, man. And if there's anything else that you want to talk about before we go.
No, I think that's good. But yeah, like, man, I had a great time. So any of the new projects I got coming, as long as if you're interested, we can always like talk about the different things too. Because like I said, a lot of different bands.
Dude, you come on anytime you want to, man. You got something to promote? Let me know. Even if it's like a 30-minute jump on and just chit chat for a minute. Anytime, dude. I
should say this real quick. Almost slipped my mind, but putting out a new Conflict record too in 2 months.
Whoa.
Yep.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, so we're doing, it's just an EP, and then they have a full length that they're going to be doing next year. But right now, we're releasing that. So
that just blew my mind. If any of those guys that you think might be willing to talk to me at all, I don't want to be pushed on anybody, but if you got any of those dudes that would want to talk about any of this stuff, like let me know, please.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So and I guess the last thing, just if anybody wants to keep track of like that, like the new one is the label Instagram is Uprising Massive. So that's
we're gonna put links to all that shit in the description, and if you want, I'll put it in like a pinned comment too. I don't mind doing all that. I just need to remember to do it, but it'll all be in the description. We'll put all your contact info, and I want people to come out, support your stuff. Go check it out on Instagram, Bandcamp, YouTube, wherever it's at. Just ingest this music, because we put a lot of work, you put a lot of work into your music, and people need to understand that the amount of time and energy that goes into just producing one song for people to listen to. So shit, yeah, dude, it's been a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for your time.
Hey, much appreciated. I had a great time.
All right, Sean, talk to you soon, brother.
Hey, talk soon. See you,
all right, later, man.